Are you having a hard time writing sentences, paragraphs, and compositions? Does the thought of making logically connected ideas bother you? If yes, I'm sure that you're just one of the many who experience that, and I must agree that sometimes it's really hard or challenging to pull our ideas together. Stay tuned to this presentation on signals indicating coherence, and let's see how will this help you. Systematic logical connection or consistency in sentences and text are important to establish clear presentation of information. This connection can be established through coherence. Coherence can be established with the help of various transition signals that signify different meanings. These signals are used depending on the meaning or context portrayed. A change in transition signal may result to incomprehensible concepts or absence of connection. In this video lecture, I will share with you 4 classifications of transition signals and some of their examples. These transition classifications are additive transitions, adversative transitions, causal transitions, and sequential transitions. Let's get to know these classifications. What are additive transitions? Additive transitions are used to add similar idea, introduce an additional idea, introduce an example or illustration, introduce a restatement or explanation, and or draw to a close or summarize. Let's tackle them one by one. These are some of the transition signals that we may use if we want to add a similar idea: comparatively, coupled with, correspondingly, identically, likewise, similar to, together with, and equally. For example, we should be careful with the coronavirus disease that makes our respiratory system weak. Likewise, the HIV/AIDS that makes our immune system frail. In this sentence, the first idea states that coronavirus is a threat to our health and that we must be cautious. The second idea in the sentence indicates similar thought that HIV/AIDS is something that we must be watchful about because it also weakens our health condition. These 2 similar ideas are put together using the transition signal likewise, making the whole sentence coherent enough to understand. Simply put, both coronavirus and HIV or AIDS are dangerous to our health. To introduce an additional idea, we may use these transition signals. Also, furthermore, additionally, in addition, moreover, similarly, likewise, as well as, besides, another, too. For example, the government reminds the people on the existing policies on community quarantine. Also, it advises them to always observe appropriate protocols. In this sentence, the first idea is a reminder from the government for people to know that there are policies about community quarantine. And the second idea is an additional thought that complements the first one, made clear by the use of the word also as transition signal for adding ideas. What if we want to introduce an example or show an illustration? These transition signals will be helpful. For example, such as, for instance, namely, to demonstrate, in particular, and specifically. Let's use one of them in a sentence. There are various health protocols that the government mandates. Social or physical distancing, for example, must be strictly observed, especially in public places. In this sentence, one of the given examples of various protocols is social or physical distancing. Of course, it's clearly identified by this transition signal. For example, that is, in fact, indeed, namely, specifically. Thus, these transition signals may be used when we want to introduce a restatement or explanation. For instance, we did not enjoy our vacation in Hong Kong. In fact, heavy rains poured the city for almost 3 days. In this example, not enjoying the vacation was because of the 3-day heavy rains. The feeling of dissatisfaction was explained and the explanation was introduced with a transition signal, in fact. How about in drawing conclusion or summary, especially in writing paragraph? What transition signals may be used? These are to conclude, as a final point, in brief, in conclusion, indeed, in short, in summary, finally, lastly. Let's try one in a sentence. Many companies were forced to shut down. The unemployment rate increases for the past 4 months. A number of OFWs have been repatriated. In conclusion, the country is experiencing great economic losses due to COVID-19 pandemic. In this example, the last sentence introduced by the transition signal in conclusion talks about economic losses, which is actually a brief summary that talks about the focal point of the first 3 sentences. Did you get that? Now let's move to the next classification of transition signal. It is adversative. When we say adversative transitions, these are used to introduce an opposition to an idea, contrast, and or emphasize or clarify a point. Some of the transition signals that fall under adversative transitions that introduce opposite idea or contrast are in contrast, conversely, alternatively, yet, although, even though, nevertheless, notwithstanding, however, on the other hand, whereas, while, instead, and otherwise. Let's use one in a sentence. Even though the country is experiencing great economic loss due to this pandemic, it has continued helping other countries by sending our medical frontliners and other essential materials. The words even though introduce 2 subsequent but opposing situations, and those are, the country is able to help despite economic loss. Other adversative transition signals are those that emphasize or clarify a point. These may be used for that purpose. Even more, above all, indeed, more importantly, and besides. Let's use indeed in a sentence that points out emphasis. Despite our limited resources due to this pandemic, Glenda still managed to distribute relief goods to some of our neighbors. Indeed, she is a helpful and wonderful person. The word indeed is to emphasize that Glenda is really a helpful and a wonderful person, given the odd that there are just limited resources. The third classification of transition signals is called causal. This indicates a consequence or a result. Some of the transition signals that may be used are consequently, accordingly, as a result, hence, subsequently, therefore, thus, thereupon, as a consequence, for this reason, and wherefore. How about using as a result in a sentence? The students reviewed their lessons well before their exams. As a result, they passed the school's assessment process. In this example, the students passed the exam because they reviewed well. The outcome of the action is introduced by the transition signal as a result. Sequential is the 4th classification of transitions. These transitions indicate the sequence of ideas, events, or actions. Examples are firstly, secondly, thirdly, next, then, after, lastly, finally, accordingly, meanwhile, and henceforth. Let's have a sentence that indicates sequential ideas. My mother cooked our favorite breakfast. After eating, she washed the dishes and other utensils. Then, she swept the floor and cleaned the whole house. This sentence clearly lays down order of activities from the first one to the last one. Transition signals used are first, after, and then. Let's do a recap. Today, I shared with you 4 classifications of transition signals, and these are additive transitions, adversative transitions, causal transitions, and sequential transitions. I showed some of the useful transitions that fall under each of the classifications and used some of them in sentences. Just to cap everything here, transition signals are like bridges that link ideas together to create a stronger or clearer point of ideas or discussion, and that's what we call coherence. Some transition signals may express various meanings depending on how they are contextualized in a sentence. Learning to use these transitions can really be very challenging at times, and I believe that apart from listening to this lecture or lectures like this, understanding their uses can be gradually achieved through constant reading and writing practices. We acknowledge Pivot 4a Learner's Material for English 8 as the content source of this video lecture and canva.com for the clip arts. By the way, if in case you missed some points, you can always replay this video lecture for clearer understanding of the concepts. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more video lectures. Thank you for watching.